Welcome, everybody. What a thrill to have everybody here to celebrate the publication of Cosmogenesis. What an amazing, amazing book. And can't wait to dig in and talk about it with the author, the one and only Brian. But just to say, for people who are new to the network, that we are a network looking at everything inside of an evolving universe and looking at it with different ways of knowing, a science way, a spiritual way, with the classical religions, with indigenous spirituality, and with the wisdom of women, or the four wisdom traditions, as Thomas Berry talked about. So I want to acknowledge that we have people here from all over the world. I think we're covering all of the continents, and it's just exciting to have everybody here together. Dr. Swimme is professor at the California Institute of Integral Studies in San Francisco, where he taught evolutionary cosmology to graduate students in the philosophy, cosmology, and consciousness program. He is the co-creator with Mary Evelyn Tucker of the Emmy Award-winning PBS documentary, Journey of the Universe, and co-author of the companion book of the same title. He works with Monica DeRasp-Bowles and Devin O'Dea of the Human Energy Project to produce the popular YouTube series, The Story of the Noosphere. His other published works include The Universe is a Green Dragon, The Universe Story Written with Thomas Berry, and The Hidden Heart of the Cosmos. I want to show a 3-minute video that was made especially for this event by Clifford Berrien. Clifford Berrien was in last year's leadership program, and he made this video for Brian, just amazing, for Brian. The title of this video is A Whiff of Green Dragon Breath. It's just 3 minutes, and I think you'll see immediately why we're showing it, because it sets up the conversation so beautifully. So just relax for 3 minutes and enjoy this video.
It was a kind of shock for me. I spent decades learning the story of the universe, but I always, on a subconscious level, I regarded it as a story about things happening out there. And then I realized I was one of those things. In other words, I was evolving along with everything else. I think it's a deep perspective in Western civilization that the human is looking out and understanding the world as it is out there and forgetting about the subjectivity in which we live. I don't know, it hit me one day and I thought, if I'm going to really tell the universe story, I've got to include the story of my own development as a storyteller, because my understanding of the universe in my 20s is different than in my 30s and different than in my 40s. And it's not like one decade I was right and the other decade I was wrong. It's that human understanding is always evolving. So to really capture the essence of this cosmic evolution, one has to tell it in an evolving way. And so that's what I tried to do, to give that sense of I'm changing along with everything else and what's going on. That was my orientation. we need to be astonished. Like I say, we need to have our minds boggled, because what we've learned has amazing implications for how we are to live our lives.
Isn't that wonderful? How it ties together the personal with the cosmic. So we want to get into your personal story and, the auto-cosmology that you've talked about. But before we do that, you and Thomas have talked about this moving from a static cosmos to a cosmogenesis, which is, of course, the title of your book. What does it mean to move from a cosmos to a cosmogenesis, and why is it so important?
Discovering that we live in a cosmos was an amazing moment. It took millions of years for human intelligence to arrive at that understanding that things were ordered. We have evidence of it in the cave drawings. The depiction of the animals is absolutely superb, as everyone knows, but they're not part of a larger whole. So that human mentality had reached a level of when, in the dark, we could create images that come from our experience, but we hadn't yet arrived at a conscious experience of order. All animals live implicitly inside of an ordered ecosystem, a dynamic ordered ecosystem, but humans actually became aware of living inside of an ordered ecosystem. And we have the development of architecture which expresses this. So we have to see the experience of a cosmos as an amazing achievement that, like I say, required literally millions of years. But then we've come to this new experience that this ordered cosmos, all right, is actually in movement. And that just imagine how hard it is to take that in. So the phrase that I used, 30 years ago to capture this, I haven't got a better one, but we have come to experience the mountains as galloping. Now, the mountains require hundreds of millions of years to reach their shape, but now we know they all of them exist as a peak of a column of time. So this is the great achievement of modern science. Is that we have found our way into the first shallows of experiencing ourselves inside a billion-year creative event. So that I think in a real sense, reflecting on the difference of living inside of a cosmos and living inside a dynamic, energetic movement. That is where we are as a human species. I brought out this notion that at one time we weren't conscious of order. I brought this out as a way of indicating that human mentality has gone through a number of these amazing transformations. We're just in the midst of the latest one. It's not like this is a one-time event in the whole history of humanity? No, it's a one-time event after a series of one-time events. So, Jennifer, I would say, just in reflect on your question, all of our institutions really were constructed within a mentality of the cosmos. And we are in the process of reinventing our institutions, and in particular, reinventing our psychology, our psyche, as one that has come out of this billion-year process and participates in its movement forward. I'm not sure all my responses will be that long. I feel like apologizing, but the question you ask is just so central to our moment.
Yes, absolutely, Brian. Thank you so much. We are noticing that your image is a little bit fuzzy, Brian, and I'm not sure if any of the more techie people here can give us a little instruction about how to improve that, but I think that we're just going to go with how it is. And because
Jennifer,
your audio is fine. Your audio is absolutely fine, Brian.
I'm getting older, Jennifer. It's just like I'm kind of fuzzy. That's all. What am I going to do?
It's because it's snowing where you are.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you for your comment in the chat box, Gloria. We're going to work with it as it is, and the sound is working fine. So we're just going to go with this. So following up on this answer, to the question about cosmogenesis, Brian, in your book, you said, it was just so powerful for me when I read it, the universe was breathing me. The universe was breathing me. So something bigger than me was breathing me. And you said that we live in a being with its own sense of creative unfolding. What does it mean that the universe constructs itself? And how does auto-cosmology fit into that?
Well, let me start off with that first as a way of responding. Let me start off with that first statement you made of the universe breathes me. So I had these experiences. I think the experiences I've had that I'm writing about in the book, I actually think are very, very common in humanity at this time. For those that are reflecting on the nature of the universe and what we've learned, I think these experiences are common, but they're not identified. So they happen, and then they drift away. They kind of disappear. But as we learn to actually name them, we amplify their presence in our awareness. And so this experience of the universe breathing me, and that is, I'm not even sure it's the best phrase, but I can tell you and give you a feel for it. And as I do this, let me just say that one of my primary aims in writing Cosmogenesis the way I did was so that it might activate your awareness of having similar experiences. That's really one of the crucial aims of my book, is that I'm hoping people can read it and go, oh, that's what happened. That's what happened. So it was the experience is, it start off and we say this, that we have this amazing history of humanity, and we've done incredible things. We're a brilliant species, but we need to also remember that that everything we've done has been powered by the sun. That we draw in the energy from the sun, either when we eat, so that the sun is the sun's energy is coursing through all of us right now. And then the question has to be, well, where did the sun get its energy? And what we've learned is that the heat of the sun comes from the collapse of a cloud, so that what we call gravitational potential energy, but it's this vast cloud collapses down and collides with itself and heats up to the point where the fusion reactions inside the core of the star take place. And so it gives off all of this energy. In each second, the sun is transforming 4 million tons of itself. So the moment after moment after moment, all of this energy is streaming out of the sun. And we pick up a tiny little sliver of it. And that tiny little sliver is powering all of our activities. The most spiritual thing we can do, whatever that is in your mind, that is powered by the sun. Then, like I say, the sun got its energy from the collapse of a cloud. Well, where did the cloud get its energy? The cloud got its energy from the burst of energy at the beginning of time. Everything was spreading apart. So you have the early hydrogen atoms are all spreading apart from the energy at the birth. And then we have these clouds filled with energy, then contracting, giving birth to stars. Here we are, so that in each moment, we now know that each moment of our lives is powered by the initial flaring forth of energy 14 billion years ago. Now we are this energy. We come out of it and we shape it. So it's one thing to know these facts about the universe, but the next step, and that's the one I'm interested in, is to feel their truth.
Yeah.
And so that each moment the universe is doing us.
Yeah.
The universe is Jennifering. And so this is, it's like it's breathing us, it's thinking us. We're still the unique individuals that we are, but we begin to feel ourselves as the entire column of time, reaching back into the roots of the universe's birth.
Yeah. I think I told you, Brian, as I was reading your book, I had this overwhelming insight that I was part of the story. I saw myself coming in your story.
That's great.
And I saw so many people coming in your story. Maureen Wilde is here. I saw her coming. Mary Southard, I saw her coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw it all being called forth as part of this lineage.
That's great to hear.
Yeah.
That's my hope with the book.
Yeah.
The experience you had.
And I think that's one of the reasons why it's moving so many people, is because they read your story, your auto-cosmology, and we're seeing ourselves in it.
Yeah, because we're all in it. We are all in it. Yeah.
So if you look at, if we look at from a cosmic perspective, and then look at ourselves, or in your case, look at yourself, how did the universe construct you, and what was the universe trying to do inside of Brian Swimme?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, this is a deep, deep question. Is the universe trying? Is it aiming at something? Now, just that question is as deep as it gets. And we are asking this question 3 centuries after the European and American civilization slid into the conviction that the universe wasn't aiming at anything. The universe had no purpose. So we're asking that question, the same question that haunted the existentialists. And their conclusion was the entire universe is absurd. And the only way to grow up and be an adult is to accept the fact of meaninglessness and make the best in a shriveled up context, by which I mean that make the best when you take the context of the nation state or your banking account. So this is the tragedy of our time. Once we slid into this nihilism of a meaningless universe, we hunkered down into the ongoing destructive relationships we have among ourselves, because we're struggling to find a fundamental way to unite with other peoples. We other people, that's not us. So with this question then, that Jennifer, that you're asking, is now asked in a much bigger context. We're asking it in the context of the universe as a whole. We couldn't do this before we discovered the developmental history of the universe. It was in Einstein's view, it was just there. The universe was like, and Newton too thought of the universe as being infinite and just, well, Newton, of course, said, forget about Newton. But in the later modern period, we just accepted the fact that the universe was not going anywhere. And now we find out it's been going somewhere from the very beginning. Here's what I mean now. We can now state with great confidence that the universe has a direction. And this is what I mean by that. If we go back 14 billion years to the birth of the universe, when the universe just consisted, say, of hydrogen and helium and lithium atoms. And there they all are, chaotic, moving this way and that way, and seems like a random mess. And yet their interactions are rushing toward the construction of stars. So the early universe definitely had a purpose. It was to construct stars. And the stars, when the stars emerged, they too go through a sequence of transformations. They have a beginning, they have a youth, they have a middle age, they have an old age and death. All of this is the purpose, the direction of a star. And they give birth to the next stellar systems, which include planets. Now, I'm so big on rocky planets because we're just now developing the capacity with the James Webb Space Telescope to examine the rocky planets throughout the Milky Way galaxy and identify which ones of them are alive. We live in that moment. We could be the generation that establishes empirically that there are many planets in the Milky Way that are alive. We know right now, the estimate is there are 320 million planets that are Earth-like and at the right distance from their star. 320 million. They might all be alive. But let me pull back from that, because we don't know if any of them are alive. But I can tell you something that all scientists will agree to. All of those rocky planets are loaded with rubies and sapphires and emeralds, because the mixing that takes place on a rocky planet that has the size of Earth, that mixing of the minerals inevitably leads to these gemstones. So Jennifer, I'm simply saying now what is becoming believable, viable in an empirically based fashion is the universe knows where it wants to go. Now, as soon as I say that, I know I'm causing people to have headaches, because am I saying, you're asking, am I saying that the universe has a brain and thinks and knows things? I am not saying that. I'm not, and this is an extremely important point to me. It's the essence of cosmogenesis. I am saying that pervading the universe is a kind of intelligence that is different from human intelligence. But it is an amazing intelligence that knows how to construct stars, that knows how to build galaxies, that knows how to fashion rubies, and knows how to build human beings.
Yeah.
Let me just end with this last line. That's the great shock of going from cosmos to cosmogenesis, is that we're living inside an intelligent dynamism that is deep enough to give birth to us. We derive from cosmic activity. We're not other than the universe. It's not out there. Yeah. We derive from it. It constructed us.
Yeah. It's just such a stunning insight. And
it may be the greatest insight of the last million years. We have to take that in. It could be.
Yeah.
Stephen Hawking thought it was the greatest insight in the history of humanity.
So you tell a story in the book about Thomas Berry, your great teacher. First of all, the story of you meeting Thomas is just amazing. Everyone has to read this book if you haven't yet.
Why is it amazing for you, Jennifer? Tell it. What amazed you about it?
What, the book or?
No, the meeting.
The meeting with Thomas. Well, you just describe the excitement, that you had. And it was almost like the atoms in the air are vibrating. and there are many people in this meeting right now who have met Thomas, and they know exactly what we're talking about. Yeah. That there was something about Thomas Berry when he would begin to share his insights that just you felt like you were high, literally. You didn't need to take any drugs. No. It was just a high to be around him, and you felt the world was altered.
Yeah.
And everyone who I know.
Well, and that would be also part of my mission. I felt like those of us that actually knew him and had coffee with him, it's almost like an obligation to share that with others, because it was an amazing experience.
Yeah. And what was that line you said? You said, I felt like I was tagging along after Thomas Berry like a hungry dog in search of treats.
And he had these treats in his pocket.
Yeah. and he'd just drop them out. And you'd pick them up.
Random moments.
You never knew when they were going to come. But there's this amazing story in your book about in 1983 at St. John the Divine, when Christian theologians were asking Thomas about his personal foundation. And Thomas says that the universe is his personal foundation. So when he said that, was he denying his Christian foundation? What was he really saying there, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I wish he were here. He could tell us right now. But I talked to him about it, so I can at least give a sense of it. You know, I use the phrase othering. So we have in science, in modern science, that we've tend to emphasize objectivity, and so that the universe then consists of stars out there, galaxy out there, and these are just objects, and the Thomas's basic criticism of that was to say his most famous phrase, I think, that the universe is not just a collection of objects. It is rather a communion.
Yeah.
Communion experience. And so that what he would speak sometimes, he would say things differently with different groups. And so the Christian theologians that were asking him, they wanted him to denounce pantheism and to embrace Christian theology. And so the tack he took was this: he saw them as objectifying Christianity, so that the way he put it was that some theologians think there is a Christianity with certain essential truths. Now, some of that may be the case, but what Thomas was emphasizing was that Christianity is a process. It has a birth, it is developed, it's ongoing. So he'd be very comfortable with saying the universe created Christianity. So he just breaks out of the dualistic point of view very, very severely. And his sense was the universe created the Christian process. The universe created the Buddhist process, the Islamic process. And in his own feeling was that the magnificence of these world religions is yet to be seen. So he broke with the idea that world religions had their heyday in the past, in the classical period, and he was very much convinced that like I say, their true magnificence is yet to come, is developing, will be part of the future of our planet.
So seeing religion inside of the cosmogenetic process.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. That's the shift, that everything is inside a process. It's a universe of not yet. Great things have been achieved, but it's not done. More is coming. More is coming.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's shift a little bit to your personal story, Brian, because your book just covers so many amazing sort of personal stories and struggles. And one cannot help but read the book and see all the markings of a hero's journey. I mean, you were stripped down, you left your job, you left the West Coast, you you left the world that you knew, and your wife, Denise, was just a crucial, crucial person as part of your whole journey. And so just, do you consider your own life a hero's journey?
Not really. Not really. I guess I guess the way I would put it is that I just feel I'm keenly aware of how many people were absolutely essential to this journey. You mentioned Denise and my best friend Bruce Bhakti, and meeting Matthew Fox, hugely important. I remember, my mother used to argue with me because I would come up with the wildest things. I remember when I was young, I just learned about what we called in the old days atom smashers, this idea of particle accelerators, and that they could break apart an atom. And she showed me an article with that, and I said, well, I can split an atom with an axe. I would just use an axe. And she said, son, the machines they require, they're as big as our house. Well, I would use a really sharp axe. So like we would just over the years, she would, so that, I mean, there's so many things that enter into a life. So I see a heroic journey of a community. I mean,
Yeah.
so many people are working on this.
Yeah.
From different angles, and so definitely it has a heroic dimension, but we're just so fortunate in the friendships we make and the colleagues and a true friend, brings out qualities that would not exist except for that friendship.
Yeah.
So I just dwelling on all those things. Yeah, I just feel overwhelmingly grateful.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that, about the importance of the heroic journey of the community. I mean, I certainly feel that in the network, and what's going on inside the leadership program with the way that the presence of so many people around the world, the synergy that happens, that pushes everybody forward, and the whole gets pushed forward. Yeah.
No, the H.G. Wells, he had this great phrase. It's approximately, we're in a race between education and catastrophe. So right now we're in this moment of, we can see if we're just given a chance to tell others about this amazing story that we find ourselves in. If we just had a chance to talk to them one-on-one, gave them some ideas, that educational process will give birth to a new kind of human being. And what you've constructed with Deep Time Network, I think, is actually the most effective educational process in this movement from cosmos to cosmogenesis. Is the most effective educational process in the world of the internet that I know about,
Yeah, thank you, Brian. Just so you know, everybody, we're going to get to your questions very, very soon. I just have a little bit more to ask Brian. One thing that people often ask or wonder is, Brian, you and I and, everybody in this meeting share this great passion for this new story. Why doesn't everybody?
Well, that is another, these are great questions, Jennifer. That is another question that's so central. What is it, Charles Sanders Peirce had a great insight. He's an amazing American philosopher. And he said, we should focus our consciousness on those activities that are producing the opposite of what we intend. So in our life, in our personal lives, in the life of our communities, and the life of the nation and the planet, we are doing certain things that are the opposite of what we're intending. I mean, to pick the most tragic example in terms of life as a whole, is that our way of life is eliminating thousands of species each year. All of us are aware of that. And there isn't one person who is sane, one sane person who wants to eliminate the species. You see, so that Charles Peirce would say, focus on that. There's your consciousness is somewhat deranged, and you need to figure out what it is. So when I say consciousness is deranged, boy, I'm including myself. All of us have a form of consciousness that has been built up, day by day over years and years and years. And now, as magnificent as it is, there are certain aspects that need to be deconstructed. And that process is painful. Mm. So it isn't enough to have a new efficient way of driving cars. That all of that is important, but the movement forward can't focus just on the outer. It has to include a transformation of our minds,
and that's scary. That's really scary. I mean, that's the thing we have to look at, is it's really scary.
And it's painful. See, painful. And so but see, spiritual development can be described as developing the capacity to endure the pain that is necessary for us to come to think in terms of the whole first. Most of us start with the parts. I do, but to think in terms of the whole first. Immanuel Kant, the great European philosopher, when he was reflecting on what it would take for humanity to reach its potential, that's what he came to. We need to think of the whole first. And so spiritual power is developing the bravery to see into the difficult aspects, the deranged aspects, and endure the pain required to come through on the other side.
Yeah. So is this part of what you're talking about when you're talking about a new axial age? How can you give us a sense of what a new axial age is?
Yeah, so the axial age, the notion of an axial age comes from Karl Jaspers, and it's developed further by an amazing philosopher, Eric Vogelin, but it changed. So the idea of an axial age initially had to do with one time 2,500 years ago, when all these amazing spiritual teachers emerged. But as this idea has been studied and developed and extended, we're now thinking of an ongoing series of axial ages. And just to highlight a fantastic study of this, is the book, The History of Experience, by Wolfgang Leithold. Just came out. And he details, he goes through 8 transformations of the human mentality. And I touched upon a couple earlier, Jennifer, when I talked about the discovery of order, the order of the cosmos. This would be a major transformation and of the axial type. And so the and another one would be, just to throw out one more, Zarathustra. Zarathustra, maybe 3,000 or 4,000 years ago. There isn't a great historical data on when he lived, but Zarathustra was the individual that ignited conscious self-awareness. He became aware of himself as an individual in conversation with the gods, the ultimate. And he developed a method for actually activating awareness of the self in others. And we would call it now examination of conscience. That he had his followers ask a single question: did I lie today? At any moment, did I lie? And so that by focusing on this, they became ever more immersed in conscious self-awareness. So my hypothesis, not me alone, but I'm just saying in the book, I am suggesting that we are in the midst of one of these massive axial transformations. And the phrase that Thomas Berry used to identify this form of consciousness, the phrase he used was time developmental consciousness. And I was speaking of it earlier when I said, we can actually experience mountains galloping.
Mm.
We can actually experience clouds of hydrogen, helium collapsing into stars. So I'm not sure time developmental consciousness is the right phrase. I think this is a time of inventing all kinds of phrases to identify it. But the main point, right for me right now, is not the name of it, but the experience of it. And out of that will come the symbolic representations of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what we need to do. And it's not easy. This is such a time of crisis right now, but this is what we need. Yeah. Well, I want to open this up to everybody here to see if we have some questions from people. And just to let you know what we're going to do, we're going to have questions, then we'll talk just a little bit about some programs we have coming up. And then at the very end, we have an amazing meditation where we'll journey back to the beginning of the universe and then come back again to the present.
Can I just say one thing?
Yes.
It doesn't have to be a question. I mean, just a response. I mean, a feeling, an insight, a connection.
Yeah, no, that's important. Thank you. Thank you for saying that, Brian. So it doesn't have to be a question. You can just make a comment. Let's see, we've got Sarbmeet, and then I saw Maureen's hand up. I'm going to go to Maureen after Sarbmeet, okay? And then we'll come back up to the top. Okay, Sarbmeet, why don't you go?
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you, Steve, for the wonderful Q&A session with Jennifer about the book. I really enjoyed it. I'm reading it the second time right now. I have a lot of interest in the nature of time. In fact, I'm going to be teaching a course on that in a few months in deep time. And I noticed that you made some passing references to a new way to look at time that is brought about by the whole idea of cosmogenesis. And I was wondering if you would be willing to say a little bit more about your concept of time and how it has changed as a result of this idea of cosmogenesis.
What a great question, Sardmi. Thank you. I would say that the topic of time is the fundamental spiritual and philosophical challenge. So I offer these remarks, with real humility. We need a lot of reflection on the nature of time. Let me, that my thinking on time began one day. I was just daydreaming and in a classroom, and I happened to look up at the clock. Every classroom has a clock in it, and I realized for the first time in my life that I regarded the clock as numinous. It was like time. It was like time. I couldn't, I really got into it. Like, wow, that clock tells me what time it is. And then what I did was just to kind of keep the reflection going, I took the clock down and took it apart. And the amazing thing was that when I pulled off the face, like 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I pulled that off, and I was so disappointed to see a mechanism. It was a shock, because you see, I realized that like I say, I expected to pull that face off and see God or something ultimate. And then I realized, wow, this is mechanical time. This is mechanical time. And then I did a little bit of research and thinking and got into the whole idea of organic time. Thomas Berry was big on organic time. He said, tells a story about a Chinese story that a man had this wonderful crop growing, and the next day they were all the plants were dead, and somebody said, "What happened?" And he said, "Well, I just wanted to speed up their development, so I just went on and pulled each one 1 inch up, so he killed them all." But I mean, the whole idea of organic time, we live inside of it. But okay, so finally we get to my thinking, is cosmological time. And what I mean by that is this, that like all scientists, the first statement I'm going to make, all scientists would agree to, that there was a time in the universe when galaxies could be constructed. It couldn't happen before because it was too dense. And afterwards, there wasn't enough density to create the gravitational attraction necessary. There was a time for galaxy creation, one and only then. So I call that the cosmological time of galactic creativity. Now, the same thing can be said about the invention of life. On the planet Earth, the Earth right now, if it were to die, it would not have the capacity to bring forth life. That took a certain kind of soup of chemicals and elements. You get the point. So that living in cosmogenesis is living in something like, not an organism, but something like an organism with its own deep sense of creativity.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, its own sense of time.
Yeah.
Its own sense of time. Yeah.
I'm going to go to Maureen Wild. She had her hand up before. Maureen?
I'm here. Thank you. I'm coming from the Salish Sea Brian. And just before I came onto this Zoom, I was reading your little chapter about your car breaking down with Denise and your little baby Thomas Ian in the car, and not knowing what's going to happen next. And that's when I was let onto the Zoom. So I'm eager to get back to that story. But Brian, when I opened up the book, and I just received it a few days, what touched me deeply was you dedicated it to Denise.
Yeah.
And then as I began to read, and I just opened up arbitrarily according to some themes that I was attracted to, you know, and so often Denise is right there. You know, the time that you're going through your hard decision of leaving your employment at the university, and Denise encourages you. I think the first sentence here of the New Cosmic Story, the first sentence says, Denise convinced me to go to Whidbey Island to be sure of my decision. I just feel her presence in the book, even though I don't know Denise well. I think I've seen you once, Denise. I think you're on the Zoom. I hope you are. And thank you for doing that, Brian, for just bringing a spotlight into your life with Denise, the wonderful support of her, the wonderful support of your friends like Bruce Bhakti and his wife. I love that. But I want to ask you, because I haven't read the whole book yet, you once told a story, and it was on a YouTube I found a few years back, of someone of Denise. You were being interviewed by someone, I can't remember who, and you were telling the story of Denise inviting you into her kindergarten class.
Oh, yeah.
Did you write about it in the book?
No.
Could you tell everybody
Oh,
that
sure.
story?
Yeah, it's simple to tell. So that was one of Thomas's great hopes, is that we would find a way to tell the story to young people. And Jennifer Morgan has done that, with a little bit older children. And I was in, it was a kindergarten classroom, and I was on my own. And so anyway, what I did was, I don't think it was any great creative move on my part, but it was deeply moving for me. I said, okay, kids, we're going to go into outer space. Okay, now everybody fasten your seatbelts. And so they sort of got into it. And I said, off we go. We're zooming out of the atmosphere. We're zooming into space. And then I told the story of that stars create the elements, they blow up, and these elements come together in rocky planets, and that those elements are created by the stars compose our bodies. And there's one little kid, I think his name was Amir, I forget for sure. There's one little kid, as I was saying it, the stars create the elements that compose our bodies. His hand, he didn't stop looking at me, but his hand went up and touched his cheek. And he had these eyes of wonder. And I just thought, wow. Yeah, that was a fantastic moment for me and for him, I hope.
And Brian, I would say for us, for all of us, because you have evoked in your telling of the story, in your magical ways with language and your mystical self, you've evoked that sense of wonder and awe and that creation mystique that you referred to when you read those two words in Thomas's new story essay. You've done that for me. I thank you. It started over 3 decades ago, and it hasn't stopped. I just am deeply, deeply grateful to you. Thank you very much.
Great to be on the journey with you, Maureen.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maureen. Maureen had a crucial role in my life too. Thank you, Maureen. Thank you so much for everything that you've done.
Thank you, Jennifer. You're doing yeoman work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hasina.
Hi.
Hi.
Brian, I have been, so I was in the Deep Time certification program, And I remember watching a video, you talking about creativity being birthed from cataclysm, and taking the contrast between we get to express ourselves. In your book, Samit pointed a quote out to me a while ago about that we all get a gift of energy and we use it to say who we are. And now going from the individual to our global collective in this time of, I guess you could call it cataclysm. It's been a really difficult time. What do you see as the gap that we as a global collective get to fill? What do you see as this important evolution, or this important thing that we get to do to move on to our next level as a collective?
So the question is, what's the important thing we get to do that we
as a collective, right?
As a fabulous question. There's one of these deep existential questions. I would say this, that just an image of that gives a sense of how I think about things might be helpful. And that is the construction of the James Webb Space Telescope. We just launched it. It required engineers from 14 different countries and rare elements from all around the planet. All of that came together, and in order to build it, we had to draw upon the whole history of mathematical physics and engineering. You see, so I'm trying to suggest that to understand the James Webb Space Telescope, we have to see it as the construction of a collective, not all of humanity, but lots and lots of, going back in time, all of them were involved in giving birth to this. And as I said earlier on, this telescope may enable us to discover life in the planet, in the galaxy. So think of all these engineers working together and mathematicians and so forth. They got along, it was harmonious, they did something so fantastic. Why? Because they were united in a desire to know. We have found a way to gather together humans from around the planet around this deep desire to know the nature of reality. Now, I would say, first of all, that this desire to know the nature of reality comes from the entire 14 billion year process leading to us. It wasn't simply an idea some human had. No, it came out of this process. So the knowledge we're generating, we're learning, not just with the telescope, but all the areas of study, that understanding is a role that humanity is playing out. But that deep desire to know is only one of our deep desires. Think about the others. It's a deep human desire to care for the young, a deep human desire to educate the people that want to learn, a deep desire to heal. All of these primordial desires will be reaching fulfillment after fulfillment as we learn to think and act together as a collective. So astounding things are just over the horizon. And what is required? The unification of humanity. That is the great work we're part of, is to unify humans by enabling them to see that we share at the deepest regions of our psyches, we share the same primordial desires. I've listed 6, maybe there are 25, I don't know, but you can see my point.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Brian. Thank you, Hasina. Thank you so much.
Could I possibly jump ahead of Pauline? Because I would want to answer the question that Brian was answering about what we can do, because I'm working on something for what we can do and it involves Brian. Would that be all right?
Okay, can you keep it short though? Because we only have, I've got,
I know.
yeah.
Yeah, I
keep it
see the
short.
situation. I
Yep.
see. Yeah, it's a comment, really, not a question.
Okay,
know,
sure.
In this weird, horrible time we live in, there's plenty of analysis about what got us here. There's a lot of beautiful theorizing about how it would be when it was good. And there's no conversation about how to get from here to there. So that's what, what are we going to do? That's my answer to that. And I have a very specific suggestion that I'm actually starting to work on, which is to gather all the sympathizers with Brian, with the new story, with who understand it, and teach the world this story. Make that an absolute focus of all of us people, that we are going to, however we do it, and we could get a kind of a council together to make some plans or some ideas. But for me, I spread it all over in every way. In fact, I'm putting something in the chat now. You'll see my latest spread of it. But I've been with Brian for decades. He's my main man. My whole life and understanding comes out of Brian. So, but I think that this is a very definitive thing we could all decide to do. Let's get that new story understood by all of humanity.
Yeah, that's great, Suzanne. Thank you so much for that. That's great. Okay, I'm going to take one more question from Pauline, and then we're going to shift gears a little bit. Okay, go ahead, Pauline.
It's more of a comment than a question. I remember in the 1980s when I saw Brian's Canticle to the Cosmos when I was studying how to be a psychotherapist. And one morning I had after that, I had one of those experiences, I think that you were mentioning, Brian, which was I was eating a bowl of granola and the whole world opened up for me. I saw that I was eating the sun and the rain and the wheat and the farmer and the earth and the guy who brought it over in a truck and the person in the grocery store and the whole world just like. So I understand at some crazy way, because I'm not really intellectual, but I'm a person who has a lived experience of some little thing I read that I have a little bit of understanding of. And if I am anywhere near what you're saying, because I'm thinking of that cartoon with the guy's head, opened up with all these little things sticking out. Because I heard you say this. You, yeah. Thomas Berry, created you. Aristustra, or whatever the person's name is, created you. All of you are creating me in this very moment. How much more exciting can life be?
Seriously.
That's great, Pauline. Wonderful.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much for that. I'm so sorry, all these other wonderful questions I know we have, but we will find some other place for engaging in this larger conversation. I want to invite, like Suzanne said, that she has a program going on. Anybody who has an event you want to let people know about, or a book that you've published, or a book you know about, just put it in the chat box, because I'm going to send the chat comments out to everyone. So if you want to let people know about something, just put it right in the chat box. And now I'm just going to introduce Stephen Martin, who is the director of our Deep Time Leadership Program. and he's going to say something about our leadership program. But just so you know what's going to happen, Steve will just make a few remarks, and then Margie about a course that she'll teach, and then Sarmeet about a course that he'll teach. And then we'll do the final meditation, journeying back to the beginning of the universe, set to the music of Hans Zimmer's Time. So, Steve, can you say something about leadership? And you'll have to make it in like 3 minutes.
No worries. Thank you, Jennifer. And thank you, Brian, for activating this cosmogenetic process and all of us and around the planet. You know, it's really what we need right now. And I'm just going to quote one of the last lines in your book, where you say, one way forward is to begin to reflect on our experiences of the universe at work in us. And this movement forward is greatly magnified by joining with like-minded elders. And so Jennifer and myself and a team have created a 9-month leadership program based on Cosmogenesis. I'm just going to share the screen here so you can get a sense of what it looks like. This is the program from last year, and we have many graduates of that program, and there are some people in the current program right now. Our current cohort has 80 people from 12 countries around the world. And we call it a deep time leadership and well-being program. We added well-being to it after our experience last cohort, and that people felt themselves differently. They felt themselves as part of a greater whole after going through this program, right? It's changed people at a genetic level. And people can't be well, communities can't be well, and the earth can't be well without a larger context for human activity. And that's what we're reaching for in this program. I'm not going to scroll down because that will make people dizzy, but I'm just going to change tabs here to a lower part of this page. And the format for the new program will be ready soon, and Jennifer will be in touch with people about that. But we've divided this program into 3 modules, right? The first one is roughly 3 months, and it's introducing the new cosmology. So in other words, what's this cosmogenetic framework that we live in? Most people on the street don't know that we're the leading edge of a 13.8 billion year creative process. And so we kind of create the context for exploring that. And, you know, informally, we call this encountering the universe. Then this cohort moves to a new module where we learn, how do we apply it, right? How do we express the universe? How do we express what we know about this cosmic context and creativity and generativity? And we look at examples, case examples on the ground around the world where people are applying this in all kinds of situations, from education to spirituality to religious reform. We bring in some amazing people who are doing this. Brian is also included in our speakers for next year, as well as a number of incredible people. And then we move to module 3, basically embodying the universe. How can we do the work of the universe in our lives, in our communities, in our creative expressions? And this is the Deep Time Leadership Practicum. But the whole sequence of modules is oriented around what Brian referred to, our primordial desires, our allurement, our deep yearning to bring something forth in the world, the same way that the universe brought us forth. We are the expression of a cosmological desire. What's the desire in us that the universe has planted in us, that we were born for? And we cultivate that in community. We have a beautiful community. We have pods that we work in where people get to know each other very well. And we work on basically step-by-step eliciting that primordial desire, showing the larger context for it, showing the matrix of the community that it's embedded in, reflecting on the subjectivity of that and those impacted by it, and how do we take deep time action with it. So it's a transformative process that we cultivate and mentor in people. People in the last program have written many testimonials about how it changed their life. It's a 9-month birth process, right? It's a gestation process. It takes 9 months, although some people join for one or two modules, and that's fine too. But there's a whole arc of development in which we've tried to create the conditions for giving birth to something new, aligning with cosmogenesis, asking the question, how do we know we're aligned with the universe? How can we co-create more intimately with the universe? And to do it in a cohort that's global, that spans so many different time zones, is a whole lot of fun. People are finding it really enriching, really powerful, really deepening. We also offer these sessions 2 different times, the same content, but we cover all the time zones around the world. And so it's got a very global feel to it. And I hope you'll think about joining us. If you're interested, you can be in touch through Jennifer and the Deep Time website. It's a wonderful program, and we're having a great time. So thank you, Jennifer, for giving me a few minutes to talk about it.
Great. Thank you so much, Steve. Wonderful. And I'll be sending out more information about this in a follow-up email. Okay, Margie, you're here. Can you say just 1 minute?
Oh, great. Okay, I'm doing a course through Deep Time starting in April over 8 hours. I'm extremely passionate about offering this incredible opportunity together, co-creating ecozoic practices, subtitled In an Evolving Universe Toward an Unknown Future. It'll have a whole lot of different experiential experiences in it, including psychodrama, cosmology, poetry, music, reflection, the whole lot. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you for that, Margie. It's going to be fantastic. So the stress there is on the spontaneity of the moment and, delving to that deepest part of yourself, where you and the cosmos meet. What is that place within you? How do you express that? And how do you turn that into practices that are going to bring about an ecozoic era, as Thomas Berry talked about? Sarmeet.
Yes, Jennifer, thank you. So some of you may have taken the course that I delivered last summer called Quantum Wisdom. This is a follow-up on that. And the focus of this new course being offered in July, I believe, is going to be an inquiry into the nature of time. Time has always been a big mystery in our universe. And what we find is that there is an old and a new story for time. The old story, time was just a blank canvas across which all change plays itself and on which events leave their impressions. In the old story, time is linear. It has no beginning, no end. It's universal and it's passive. In the new story, time becomes a central thread around which the evolutionary process weaves itself. Time is not a measure of evolution, it's a currency. In the new story, time becomes spiral. It becomes personal, it becomes interactive. It bends and stretches and wraps around. So time brings to us a sense of relationality and belonging, and those are the things that I'm going to be talking about and much more in the course in July. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Sarmeet. So it's this combination of the science and the implications of the science. Mm-hmm. And the great thing about Sarmeet is he can explain the science concepts in ways that we can actually understand. Or at least we think we understand.
Thank you.
We don't really understand it, but
sometimes I give people headaches.
Very often. But we love it. We love it while we're having the headache.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarmeet. Thank you so much. Okay, so now we'll have a closing meditation, and let me share the screen. And as you can see, lots of people are writing in the chat box. This is just so wonderful. And again, I will be sending out the chat comments to everybody. This is a WMAP, the Wilkinson Microwave Anisotropy Probe on the far right. So the far right is the present. The far left is the beginning of the universe. And we're going to go down the tunnel all the way to the beginning. And then we're going to punch right through that. And then we're going to come back to the present. So what you see here is cosmic evolution. Every single second, light is coming to us. And this light has different wavelengths. They can be long wavelengths or short wavelengths. The longer wavelengths represent things that are farther away or represent a time, an earlier time in the universe. The shorter wavelengths represent events that happen more recently. So we can take slices based on the wavelengths and use that to create an understanding of cosmic evolution. Isn't that amazing? Now, this is the WMAP image. This is what the universe looked like at 380,000 years old. This is the time when hydrogen was forming. So we are going to go through that as we travel down. Now, let me tell you one more thing, to just let yourself experience it. You might try to find yourself getting a little intellectual about it. You can certainly do that. But you can also just kind of, let yourself rest into the experience. The music is Hans Zimmer's Time. And since we're talking about time, a time developmental universe, this is just the perfect piece of music. You're going to see something that looks like a pie shape, and that shows the parts of the universe that have been mapped so far. And the dark parts show the parts that haven't been mapped so far. So just relax and enjoy the trip. Have a good evening, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Blessings.
Thank you very much, Jennifer and Brian and everybody.
How do we get the
Thank you very much, Brian.
How do we get wonderful book, Brian?
Thank you, everyone.
Mercy,
Thank you,
mercy.
Brian.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
Brian.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Jennifer and Brian.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you. Bye.
Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Hey, Jen.
Be well, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jennifer and Brian.
Oh, Mary.
Thank you, Mary.
Brian.
Well done.
Hey, Mary.